Good evening, my Real News Midday TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update. And in the news this evening, police identified 2 women killed in Mandeville candlelight vigil shooting. Police have identified 2 women who were shot dead by a licensed firearm holder at a candlelight vigil on Nashville Road off Levy Lane in Mandeville on Sunday morning. The deceased have been identified as 35-year-old Aldine Dixon, a resident of Colleyville District in northeast Manchester, and the 42-year-old Stacey Mulgrave, a resident of Barnstable District near Mandeville. Earlier reports had suggested that the shooting incident, which also left 3 people including a 12-year-old boy injured, took place about 2 a.m. Police have since provided an update that the incident occurred closer to midnight. According to police, the shooting happened during an alleged dispute stemming from an incident where a car hit another vehicle. It is reported that it escalated and the 5 people were shot. The gunshot victims were taken to hospital where 2 women succumbed and the 2 others admitted for treatment. A 12-year-old boy, who was reportedly also injured during the shooting, was treated and released from hospital. The licensed firearm holder reportedly turned himself in at the Mandeville police station. He remains in custody pending further investigation. Up to mid-afternoon on Sunday, there was a somber mood at the shooting scene as relatives of the victims gathered around. Police are also maintaining a presence in the area. Man charged over alleged theft of $200,000 worth of Clarendon church equipment. A Kingston man has been charged with sacrilege following the theft of over $200,000 worth of equipment from a church in Freetown, Clarendon last week. The accused, 45-year-old Damian Henry, a laborer of Maxfield Avenue, Kingston 13, was arrested after stolen items were recovered in his possession, said a police statement issued on Sunday. Under the Larceny Act, a person guilty of sacrilege, which includes breaking and entering any place of divine worship, faces up to 10 years in prison. Reports indicate that on February 19, officials of the Longville Boulevard-based discovered both the front and the back doors of the church open. Upon checking, they realized that an audio mixer, amplifier, microphones, and the speaker cords were missing. The police say the theft took place between February 16 and February 18. The matter was reported to the police, and on Friday, officers acting on intelligence found an audio mixer and an amplifier in the possession of a man who claimed he had purchased them from Henry. Further investigations led police to a bar in Longville Park, Clarendon, where Henry was allegedly attempting to sell additional stolen items. When questioned, he reportedly failed to provide a satisfactory explanation for his possession of the equipment. The stolen items were later identified as property of the church, and Henry was taken into custody. A caution statement was recorded, and he was subsequently charged with sacrilege. At least 54 road fatalities in first 54 days of 2025. 54 days into the year, and at least 54 people have been killed in traffic crashes. The 2 latest victims, drivers of private motor cars, were killed in separate crashes between Saturday night and Sunday morning in St. Catherine and St. Elizabeth. According to police reports, the men, whose names have not been released, were ages 31 and 34. Speeding was listed as a factor in both incidents, the first crash occurring around 9:30 p.m. on the P.J. Patterson Highway in St. Catherine. Reports are that the driver of a Honda motor car was traveling at a high rate of speed when he lost the control of the vehicle and crashed into a guardrail to the left of the roadway. He was thrown from the vehicle on impact and succumbed to his injuries while being treated at hospital. The second crash occurred about 1 a.m. Sunday along the New Holland Main Road in St. Elizabeth. According to the police report, the car was traveling at a high rate of speed when the driver lost the control of the vehicle, which veered to the left of the roadway and crashed into a tree. The impact resulted in the driver being thrown from the vehicle. Up to Friday, the Island Traffic Authority was reporting that 52 people were killed in 47 fatal crashes since the start of the year. The weekend deaths have now pushed that number up to 54 from 49 fatal crashes. Up to Friday, fatalities had decreased 12% and the fatal crashes were down 8% when compared to the similar period in 2024. Jamaica's high murder rate linked to low incarceration rate, says Capri. Jamaica's generally low incarceration rate is in part responsible for the country's high murder rate, according to lead researcher at the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Dan Thornburn. Thornburn made the observation last Tuesday at the public launch of a European Union-backed study titled Hits and Misses: Women in Organized Violence, Challenging the Narrative and the Reality of the Jamaican Gangstress. The study found that while Jamaican women are not generally involved in violent crime and as such are not the ones pulling the trigger, they nonetheless perform multiple and important roles in violent gangs. Thornburn highlighted that despite a proliferation of gangs in Jamaica, the country has one of the lowest imprisonment rates in the hemisphere. This is in a context where there's an empirical relationship between incarceration rates and murder rates, meaning that there is a negative correlation between the number of homicides and the number of people in prison in Jamaica, Thornburn explained. The more people in prison, the lower the rate of homicides. The fewer people in prison, the higher the homicide rate. This is an empirically observed phenomenon in Jamaica over the past 2 decades, she added. Thornburn said this means that many criminals, male and female, are simply not in prison. She told the launch that the most prevalent form of domestic violence committed by women in Jamaica is violence against the children. She noted that women's involvement in serious violent crime is marginal. In 2021, less than 3% of those arrested and charged for Category 1 crimes, murders, shootings, assault, larceny and robbery were women. For murders, women accounted for just 2% of all arrests. Thornburn said Capri was unable to find a single case of a woman pulling the trigger in a gang-related homicide. Even in police killings, there's been only one known case of a woman fatally shooting someone that happened in 2018, she added. In 2024, women made up 4% of arrests involving gang members. However, there was no prior year to compare this number with to determine whether it represents an increase or a decline. Of note is that across the globe, there is an increase in the number of women taking part in violent crime, but this is not reflected in Jamaica. Elsewhere, women are participating at a higher rate and being incarcerated at a higher rate than men in many countries, including in the Latin America and the Caribbean region. Thornburn said the opposite was happening in the Caribbean, where female incarceration rates are holding steady or are on the decline, with Jamaica having one of the lowest incarceration rates in the entire hemisphere, with only Haiti and Guatemala having lower numbers. Any assumption that Jamaica would be keeping with international trends of rising female criminality is not borne out by the data, she stated. The Capri director said the perception of Jamaican women being violent gangsters may be driven by a law enforcement perception bias, where a few more women might be arrested and charged, and this may be unusual, thus appearing to be a surge. She said media may also play a role where cases involving women are highly publicized, reinforcing the idea of a trend not reflected in the data. Thornburn admitted that it was possible that women's increasing role in violent crime was not fully captured by the data, since women's roles in crime are less visible and often underreported or harder to detect. Jamaica had an incarceration rate of 125 per 100,000 of a population of 2.85 million people as at July 2022, according to World Prison Brief. At that time, 4% of the incarcerated population was a female, 5.4% were juveniles, with an official capacity of 4,276. Some 87% of the space in penal institutions was occupied. Often plagued with overcrowding and unsanitary conditions, 2009 saw the prisons bursting at the seams with an incarcerated population of 5,163 inmates. Thank you everyone for watching. See you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for another news update.